Okay, it is 5 after, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Um, I I want to start out with saying that I am so moved that this event reached capacity in terms of signups and that there was a wait list. Um, it really means a lot to me that so many people want to start asking this kind of question. Um, because it's this mindset that I think is really going to move us into not just doing less harm, but building something beautiful and creating a future we can all fall in love with and really redefining sustainability. So, oh, thank you for the heart. I am just so moved that so many people are here. Um, yeah, it's really touching. Uh, so I'll introduce myself really quickly. My name is Tara Pierce, and I essentially um, spent my entire life looking for where I can make the most difference in the world. I've spent many years in nonprofits, of course, and dipped my toe into some government agencies. And then I started collecting graduate degrees like Pokemon cards. And I ended up starting Restoring Sustainability because I realized that we need to start thinking differently. Um, and that's what I want to offer the world is asking questions like this, what does the ocean want us to grow? And really changing our mindset on how we relate to the living world and how we can live in harmony with it. And so I do a lot of leadership coaching for people who want to embed regenerative sustainability into their work. And this is my huge passion project. I grew up next to the ocean. I currently live on a sailboat. Restoring the ocean is not just something that is near and dear to me, but it is essential to planetary health, which I'm sure you all know and is why you are here. Um, so I'm going to go ahead and begin. Uh, we're going to start with some mindset shifts because my purpose in presenting this is not to answer the question for you, but to help you build your capacity to answer this question in any ecosystem and with any community. Of course, I will provide some examples of restorative ocean farms and restorative ocean communities and pathways to building them. Um, and I did want to leave time at the end for like Q&A and networking. Of course, I did not I did not expect so many people to be here. So I will be doing a follow-up email with this recording and a survey if you would like to get involved and network with other people as well. So that will come next week after we've all settled. Um, anyway, the first thing I want to do is see what you think. Are humans nature? Please answer in the chat. A simple yes, no is fine. Oh, we got our first yes. Another yes. Oh my God. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, I love it. I love the yeses I'm seeing, definitely. Robin and Jack responded yes, though many long-term systems want us to believe otherwise, like human exceptionalism. We often don't think we are. Yes, but we act like we're not. This is so true. I'm not surprised that people coming to this talk are answering yes and are aware of these external systems that try to separate us from nature. Um, but but yeah, this is something that I encounter with people a lot who truly believe humans are not part of nature. And this narrative is extremely damaging because it puts us in the position of inherently only doing harm to nature, when in fact, our fates are intertwined. And a lot of times I'll show people this and ask them, how exactly are we separate from nature? Right? We have to function on this planet like any other living thing. We are, as a sailor, I like to say we are children of the tides and the ocean currents, the water cycle, right? We are all connected by water. We do not control the seasons or day and night. And all of our human systems, from law to food to governance to how we choose to organize our economy, we made it up. There is no higher truth, no inevitable way of doing things. It's all from our imagination. We made it up, and it all has to function within these other systems. And I find that actually very freeing because there are so many other ways we can organize our economy and our legalities and our governance and our food systems, um, that it's very exciting. I'm German, but I clearly sound American because I grew up in California, and the indigenous people of Turtle Island, also known as North America, have had a huge influence on me. And I watched the 20-year battle to have this dam removed, and it was the largest restoration of a dam removal site in the United States. And the Yurok tribe really capture the fact that this other worldview exists, that human beings are in fact part of the landscape, and that we belong here. And, restoring the earth or restoring the ocean is how we restore ourselves. And so this mindset shift that is extremely helpful for figuring out how to do that in any space is recognizing ecosystems are not resources. They are life support systems. And the idea of competition is actually being pushed aside um, by relational values. Relational values are becoming much more mainstream. Um, does anyone know who said all flourishing is mutual? You can throw that name in the chat if you do know. This author is highly influential to me. But this idea that um, we are interdependent and we depend on each other is transforming mainstream Western thought from economics to evolutionary biology. We are not in competition. We are supporting each other. Whether it's plants, in some indigenous languages, plants are known as the ones who take care of us. But our systems, as many of you mentioned, don't recognize this, right? Capitalist business models ignore cycles. They demand growth every quarter, but that's not how the world works. And by that, I mean like literally the seasons. And people who work close to the earth know this. Farmers and fishers, they live by nature's cycles. There's a time to plant, to grow, to harvest. And in winter, the entire earth rests. Depending on your hemisphere, of course, when winter takes place. And the wonderful thing about recognizing that all of these things happen in cycles is that time is no longer linear, it is cyclical, and every year there is renewal. So when we start thinking like this, it allows us to live more slowly and it allows us to live in a relationship. And I love bringing up beavers, not just because they were the mascot of one of my universities, but because they are second only to human beings in their ability to engineer the habitat in which they live. And we used to think of them as destructive. They were all but eradicated from the UK. They chop down trees and they make these dams, but the more we looked at them, the more we realized, oh, literally everything they do benefits the habitat. There's more water retention. There's more riparian habitat, which increases biodiversity. There's more, fish, and there's more water birds and migrating birds, which is connected to, the UK to Africa. And it's much better for us because then we have this thriving ecosystem upon which we depend. And so they are a keystone species. Maybe some of you saw in the news that Scotland recently released, I think, less than 10 beavers into what they called a dead lock. And none of their computer models could replicate the explosion of life. So much biodiversity thrived immediately. It was just so beautifully restored so quickly. It was kind of mind-blowing. Um, and so I'm sharing these things because this is the mindset we need to answer questions like, what does the ocean want us to grow? We need to have an abundance mindset. What wants to grow here? In the ocean, often it's called biofouling because this life is growing on something we don't want it to grow on. But what if we could harness that? What if we could use that? And then when we see what wants to grow there in this ecosystem, we have to think about our relationship to it. What does this species offer us? And what can we offer it in return? How can we have a reciprocal relationship? And of course, this is where the community comes in because place-based knowledge, traditional ecological knowledge, and cultural heritage, more often than not, have a very deep understanding of what lives here, how it is beneficial to us, how we can support its life, and essentially how we can choose to be keystone species like beavers. And this is a concept really central to my work in general, which is ecocentric equity. So when we are trying to meet the needs of our human community, we have to center the functions of the ecosystem in which we live and support those functions because they will support us in turn. So this concept of partnering with nature is becoming increasingly mainstream. This report from 2020, commissioned by the High Panel for Sustainable Ocean Economy, actually featured restorative ocean farms. Bren Smith, this gentleman over here in the orange beanie, he is the pioneer of restorative ocean farms in the United States. And he has an amazing story. He went from being a fisherman in Newfoundland, the Bering Strait, to being really upset by how much waste there was in fishing. And so he went back to school and tried his hand at fish farming and was really grossed out by that, frankly. And so he became an oyster farmer. But then climate change wiped out his crop 2 years in a row. And he thought, all right, what does the ocean want us to grow? I totally borrowed the title from him. He asks that in his book. And he came up with kelp. And he realized that nature doesn't care for monocultures. And so he created the permitting system to have a polyculture underwater garden in the States. So when we're looking at examples of this, when we want to answer this question, wherever we are, we have to think native species, species that do not require inputs, no feed, no fertilizer, they don't need water, they live in it, and they don't swim away. And typically, this is not a monoculture because that's not how the ecosystem works. And so what you have is this multi-species garden underwater. This is my own watercolor representation of it because it was just easier for me to draw it than to find something on the internet. But this is what it would look like in a cold water ecosystem like the UK. You have things you recognize, I'm sure, mussels, scallops, oysters, clams, right? Bivalves. Not only do they provide us with protein, but they improve water quality because they're filter feeders. Then you have various kinds of seaweeds. Um, all seaweed is remarkably high in nutritional value, and it also improves water quality. And then when you have this area where you're growing these things, it becomes like a little biodiversity hotspot because it's very protected. And so you have juvenile fish that grow up to be big fish that fishers can later catch. And you have crabs and little sharks and seals. Just they're all happy chilling here in this environment. Um, and another nice thing about this is there's no view shed concern. You can see there's just some red buoys floating at the top of the water. And all of these things combined, not only do they increase biodiversity, but they act as a carbon sink. Seaweed in particular is a huge carbon sink. They can be designed in a way that supports um, reefs like oyster reefs and natural storm protection. And the thing that transforms them into a restorative ocean community instead of just a standalone business, a restorative ocean farm, is when you start collaborating with everyone in the community. Seaweeds are an amazing fertilizer for land. They restore carbon to the soil, so there's another carbon sink opportunity. And California recently approved a red seaweed dietary supplement for cows to reduce their methane burp, which is a huge contributor to greenhouse gases, and it's much more potent than CO2. Another opportunity is putting the restorative ocean farm in between two marine protected areas to provide better connectivity and really increase the efficiency of the marine protected areas. And then when you look to the community, this is where listening becomes really important because you need to know what they want. The restorative ocean farm could be supporting nutritional outcomes in schools by supplying kids with this super healthy seafood. There can be internships with universities. The town can have, seafood festivals in summer. There can be farm tours for supplemental income, which gets into the realm of regenerative tourism. And there's just so many opportunities here. And especially for fishers, I want to point out that fishers are often blamed for a lot of environmental damage. Um, it's typically not the fisher next door. Like they can cause damage, yes, but usually it's the huge corporate conglomerates, and they're the ones coming in to, domestic waters and scooping up so much more of the fish, and the local fishers are losing out. And this type of work keeps them on the water, which they love. That was a big thing for Bren Smith. He didn't want to leave the ocean. And it diversifies their income. You're going to have different harvests all year long, and it can't be lost to a bad fishing season or to foreign fleets coming in. And also being able to work the sea up close to these marine protected areas. Fishers in marine protected areas, they have mixed feelings about each other, shall we say. And so this is a huge opportunity for the fishing community to go from being demonized for environmental damage, which most of the time they're not causing near even close to half of it, to being our heroes because they're providing us with food and they're providing a carbon sink and they're restoring the ecosystem. A lot of these also have localized ocean acidification reduction, which I'll get into a bit more later. Forgive this text-heavy slide, but I know everyone learns differently, so I just listed the benefits here if you want to see them later because this will be recorded and you can pause it and I can email it to you. Sometimes lists are nice, sometimes pictures are also nice. So the other thing I want to mention about these being restorative ocean communities is that they are ecologically based and designed by the community. this from the species being of cultural significance and economic value to the programs that come from having this farm at that location. The point is to ensure that no communities are marginalized by economies of scale, right? Nations are looking into growing seaweed, um, like a huge monoculture of seaweed at scale for things like biofuels and that kind of thing. But this is about ecologies of scale. This is about modeling our ecosystem, modeling our economy after our ecosystem and not letting anyone be left behind. That's a huge feature of ecocentric equity. Um, and as I said, fishers are going to be key in this, as they should be. They also already have almost all of the tools and all of the skills to do this, which is great. Let's see. So I want to talk real quick. I did see some people who registered work with coral and possibly other tropical ecosystems. So I want to mention uh, the J. Hunter Pearl Oyster Farm in Fiji. This was really fantastic. Several organizations supported the launch of this farm. They're growing oyster pearls. And Justin, J. Hunter, likes to say that pearls are the only sustainable gem. And the benefits of this farm, because it was focused on community, even though it's just one species, has not only restored the water quality in the bay, but it has increased economic opportunities for women, which has had this ripple effect where men, now because they are not the sole breadwinners, are able to spend more time with their kids. And that has really benefited the community as a whole. And everybody is getting more involved in um, their culture and their lives and just living together. And it's created more of a sense of belonging and ownership of place. It's really, really lovely. Um, and I did some research for SPC, the Pacific community. So if anybody wants to talk about tropical possibilities further, you can, I will provide you with my email. We can definitely talk. Um, Coral for the aquarium trade to help reduce poaching. And also, I love the idea of using coral as infrastructure around the farm so that it can reach reproduction age and help boost things. Um, Sea cucumber farming and seaweed farming already exist in tropical areas. And really, this would just be a matter of combining them. There were some sea cucumber farms that their infrastructure was destroyed by a cyclone. And so the idea of using artificial reefs in all ecosystems, cold water and warm water, is a really great way to protect against storm surges. And indigenous food sovereignty is a whole other rabbit hole we could go down that these community ocean farms can really support. But that's outside the scope here. So the bottlenecks I want to point out are exactly why we need community. Um, as I'm sure many of you know, food production is very focused on monoculture, and it's not different in the ocean. And so permitting is a challenge because often permits do not exist. So the opportunity here is lawyers, politicians, NGOs, environmental agencies. Um, this is your chance to explore this pathway of meeting your sustainability targets by supporting these permits, by helping farms launch and find funding. In the EU, there's a lot of research into integrated multi-trophic aquaculture initiatives, IMTAs. They're largely still in the mindset of do less harm because they're just trying to figure out how to handle waste from fish farms by including other species. But the funding still exists. So that's looking like a really good in for these polyculture gardens. And then landing the catch and processing the harvest, there needs to be space to process the seaweed, to process the mussels and oysters. Um, And I see a huge opportunity to revive coastal towns, especially in the UK, in areas where steel used to be a huge economic driver, and now it's all but disappeared. So we can repurpose these abandoned buildings, and we're going to be able to create a bunch of jobs, not just on sea, but on land. And there will be port improvements. And then there are some nations like Ireland that have the Our Living Islands policy, which, I mean, you may have seen it on social media. It's like, oh my God, you can buy a home for €1. But then there's all of these strings attached, like you need to restore it. And the government is going to give you money to do that, but you also have to show that you're going to live there. And so it's hard for people to engage in these policies if they don't have an income. And so if a restorative ocean community initiative can work with larger government policies like this, then we could really revive those coastal towns and islands that have been all but abandoned in the UK and Ireland and other places. Uh, the other challenge is selling seaweed in Western markets. There is a huge global seaweed industry in Southeast Asia. It is not just for sushi, it is a staple food, but it's really new to Europe as a staple food. Or I should say forgotten. It actually used to be eaten a lot. There is a cultural history of feeding seaweed to cows, for example, across the UK. Um, and this is where I get excited about creating like local sustainable business networks, like what I talked about before in the community of, seaweed going as fertilizer to farms and cows and having it in restaurants and locally made cosmetics. There's so many businesses that could explode from a restorative ocean community. And here, these things I found in Europe without even looking. Well, except for what's in the US. Kelp pickles, I really hope to be able to try those one day. I've eaten many, many bags of 12 Tides puffed kelp chips. They're phenomenal. There's multiple flavors now, but sea salt, the classic, is still my fave. And it's a huge value add into any food. Seaweed is considered a superfood. So, you have the whole health food industry that could really up its game by adding it to, spirulina and things and pastas. And then these these are other kelp chips that I've just found at a local market in a small town in the Netherlands. And there was an amazing seafood place that featured seaweed on many dishes. And then in Sweden, I found this seaweed shampoo. Like, the markets exist. They just need some more PR. Um, and so to summarize, a restorative ocean community is strong because it has three pillars that hold it up, and they reinforce each other and support each other. You have the cultural heritage, which supports the environment, which supports the economy, and it all overlaps. Again, I will be emailing this to you. So this is a summary of the photo, but essentially, communities thrive economically and culturally when they unite human needs with the ecosystem. And this is how we can engage with the fact that all flourishing is mutual, that we are not in competition, but we need to be in collaboration and support each other and support the environment. So in conclusion, the UK used to have a lot of oyster beds, a vibrant seaweed economy, and shellfish-rich shorelines. Um, Oysters used to be the food of the working class, but that is no more. And a lot of cultural memory has been forgotten. But there's so much momentum right now in ocean spaces that I think the UK is at a really important, unique opportunity to restore what was lost, completely reimagine what's possible, not just in the ocean space, but this could lead regenerative sustainability practices and mindsets. And then we can build this future in which all life thrives. So again, thank you all so much for coming and listening to this talk. Uh, as I said, I wanted to leave a lot of time for networking. Um, there's quite a few of us here now, so I'm not sure how that's going to go. I will be saving the chat, so if you want to connect with me or connect with other people in specific industries, um, who could collaborate on restorative ocean farms or other projects like this, go ahead and throw all of that information in the chat. Um, and I will still send everyone a survey so that we can try to connect. And I'm going to try to create like a little hub for everybody who wants to be involved in this at any level or at however many hours a month. It doesn't matter. I'll sort it out. And oh, Robin and Jack, yes, you're right. All flourishing is mutual. Uh, is Robin Wall Kimmerer. Uh, yes. Okay. So I'm gonna stop the recording. And we'll do Q&A and networking.